You ask, I answer. I got a message maybe a week or so ago from a listener to the show, Maddie, who wanted me to view and debunk some viral TikTok by a pro-abortion lady. I have not watched the TikTok yet. I am eager with anticipation to knock down the lies of the pro-abortion movement. Now, before we get started, this video is sponsored by Dwell. Dwell is the 5-star app that makes it easy to get into the Bible by providing a world-class listening experience. More from them later on. For now, let's get into the crazy TikTok arguments.
All right, I have an analogy for y'all. Let's go. So say you're driving and you run a red light or you miss a stop sign. You cause an accident. Due to that accident, a life is at stake. That person that you hit requires a kidney transplant, and you are a match. Should you be legally required to give them your kidney? Think about it. Now, parallel situation. 2 people have sex and an accident occurs, pregnancy. Because of that accident, a life is at risk. I have many videos describing the medical definition.
Pause it here for a second. Obviously, this is an imprecise analogy that she's making, but it doesn't work as an analogy because of the particulars, but also because of the premise. If you're driving and you get into a car accident, something has gone wrong. The purpose of driving is to get from point A to point B safely, and if you follow all of the rules, you will do that. The purpose is not to get into the accident. The purpose of sexual intercourse, the telos, the logical end of sexual intercourse, is procreation. That is what it's for. It's not just for making you feel good. It is for making babies. And so the accident that you call it is not because something has gone wrong in sexual intercourse, it's because something has gone right. And so obviously the rest of the analogy I think falls apart too. But even at its most basic premise, it doesn't work. The car accident is when something goes wrong when you're driving. Procreation, the conception of a baby, is when something goes right when you're doing that thing that only married people are supposed to do. Okay, go on.
And how that life doesn't exist until week 24. We're taking away that entire argument right now to even show you that when we consider it a life, where the medical ethics laws.
Hold on, pause right there. So she said she tried to slip that in. She said a life doesn't exist until week 24. No one has ever held that to be true. Scientifically, that's obviously preposterous.
It's just bullshit.
Even historically, even if you're going to make some argument that about quickening or ensoulment, or even before we had modern medical technology, say let's use the physics of Aristotle, where it was unclear when the signs of life begin, just because they didn't have sonograms, for instance, in the olden days. Now we do. Even then, no one said that life doesn't begin until week 24. What happens at week 24 that doesn't happen at week 23 and 6 days, or week 23 and 5 days? You might say that a person doesn't have worth until week 24.
You are worthless, Eric Barrett!
Or until 1 year old or 2 years old, or whatever you want to say. But you can't say it's not life. The moment, and now we know this, forget about old Uncle Aristotle for a second, we now know this because of modern medical science. The moment that the sperm and the egg meet, almost instantaneously, those two separate organic things disappear, and there is a new organic thing made with that genetic material that has unique genetic material and all of the signs of life, including growth, which begins instantaneously. So we're all supposed to follow the science these days and just trust the scientists and everything. The science is absolutely clear.
Yes, science!
Life begins at conception. You might not want to protect life at conception. You might say that certain life is not worth protecting. You might say that people don't deserve to be protected from murder until they're 24 weeks old, or 40 weeks old, or 2 years old, or 3 years old, and you can make some moral argument, or I think an immoral argument, but you can try to make that argument. The one thing you can't say is that it's not life. It manifestly is life, and specifically it's a human life. It's not a platypus, it's not a giraffe, it's not a fish, it's a human being. Okay, go on.
So, due to the accident, a life is at stake. The use of an organ is required in order to save, develop, grow, sustain, whatever you want to classify it as, that life that's at stake. So how is it different when a kidney is required to save a life, or a uterus is required to grow a life? Because medical ethics laws clearly sides with the owner of that organ.
So if I give my kidney to someone, which is that's a wonderful thing to do for somebody, I no longer have the kidney. whether you do murder your baby or you don't murder your baby, you're still going to have your uterus, right? It's not as though you're giving your uterus to someone. Even notice the language that she uses here. She says, I own my uterus, as if her body parts are somehow different than she is. It's some sort of other than she is, like I own my hands. This is now very common language with the transgender movement. You'll say you're a uterus owner or a ovary owner or something. To me, that is the crazy extreme conclusion of individualism, of capitalism, of consumerism, of whatever ism you want to say, rather than recognize that your soul and your body are one thing. Your body, mind, and spirit are one thing, inextricably linked while we're on this earth. You're just looking at yourself as a commodity. You are looking at yourself literally as just meat, as a meat puppet.
I am a meat popsicle.
And you own that meat. But I think it's very simple, or it's very easy to fall into the error that she's falling into of believing that you have no connection to your own child, that you have no obligation or duty to your own child. It's easy to fall into that error if you don't believe that you have any duty or obligation or unity even with your own body. This is the kind of crazy conclusion of my body, my choice. But the error begins even before you start to think about your other baby, which is why she's thinking of the baby as some kind of enemy or some kind of parasite, rather than what the baby is, which is a baby. And a baby loves his mother, and a mother has obligations and loves her baby. Mama. Here's a little trivia question. What is both the best-selling book of all time and the best-selling book each and every year? This is an easy one. This is a gimme. It is the Bible. Has been for a long time and still is today. We all know, even those who are agnostic, even those who are atheists, often they'll know that the Bible is the wisest book ever written. It has stood the test of time. It is the font of Western civilization, and yet people don't take a lot of time to read it. People don't have time to read much of anything at all. So this is where Dwell comes in. Dwell is this terrific app that will allow you to listen to the Bible. You can pull up a bunch of different versions, the King James Version. Obviously, I love the King James Version. It's very beautiful language. The English Standard Version. They've got 12 different narrators, each with a unique accent. The NIV, the NKJV, the ESV, the KJV, there are a bunch of versions. Really great way to get into the Bible, to listen to it. Go to dwellapp.io/Knowles to try Dwell free for 7 days. If you fall in love with the app, which I'm sure you will, they're giving all of our listeners early access to their Black Friday sale. Go to dwellapp.io/Knowles. Try Dwell for free for 7 days. Begin your journey of rediscovering wisdom and truth in the Bible. All right, go on.
See the slippery slope and imagine a world in which your bodily autonomy can be ignored and your rights to ownership over your organ is ignored. And you...
Pause it. There are two errors here. The most obvious one is your baby is not an organ. Your baby's not your organ. I guess your baby has organs, but they're his own organs. Your baby is not one of your organs, okay? So you don't have autonomy, whatever that even means, over your baby. Moreover, you don't have total autonomy over yourself. You don't have the right to do whatever you want to or with your body.
I used to suck for coke. I seen them.
You have certain obligations. There is a transcendent moral order. That's why we're even having this debate in the first place. The pro-abortion people say it is absolutely immoral to prevent women from killing their babies. And the pro-life people are saying it's absolutely immoral to kill your baby. Well, either way you come down on that debate, you're acknowledging that there is a moral order and you have some obligations to that moral order. And so her radical bodily autonomy stuff is bunk. It can't continue to exist if you're acknowledging the existence of an objective morality outside of your own wishes and will. Okay.
You have your bodily autonomy stripped from you, and the use of your organ is no longer your choice. And see when we parallel it to a situation like a kidney, which is gender and sex neutral, and that's a scenario that everyone can find themselves in. Now think about whether the rights that you have to your organ, how you would feel if they were removed, and how the use of your organ is no longer your decision. What kind of world is that, and how is that not a human rights violation?
How is that not a human rights violation? So we've pointed out that her analogy doesn't really make sense, but I'll take it even further than that. If your kid needed an organ, if your kid needed a kidney or part of your liver or something like that, something that wouldn't kill you but would save your kid's life, would you give it to your kid? Of course you would. Of course you would. Any parent who is not a sociopath would give his or her life for his or her child. Every single one. You can tell that this woman does not have a baby because she's spouting this kind of ignorance, but of course you would. Of course you would. She's looking at this issue primarily from the vantage of rights and entitlement and what's mine. And even if my helpless little vulnerable baby needs something from me, even something that won't kill me, won't cause me great harm, even something like just being allowed to grow and gestate for 9 months and not being murdered along the way, I'm not going to do that because I have my rights, darn it.
I thought this was America.
And no one, including my helpless little baby, can take those rights from me. How about you cut it out with the rights for a little bit and consider duty, consider obligation, consider loyalty, consider love, consider anyone but yourself, you selfish, crazy, young, myopic girl. Thank you for sending in that video. Send in more crazy TikToks and I'm more than happy to knock them down.